Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Patrick Rucker, finance reporter for the Capital Forum and contributor at ProPublica, on a major, not the only, reason private health insurance is garbage. Also on the program today, Andy Blanco, percussionist with the Distinguished Concerts Orchestra, member of the American Federation of Musicians Union Local 802. They've been on strike for almost 2 months now in New York. Meanwhile, Fox weasels its way out of the Dominion suit to the tune of nearly $790 million. Supreme Court decision on mifepristone. Mifepristone is expected today. And now Dianne Feinstein's absence is going to inhibit subpoenaing Clarence Thomas if the Senate actually does an investigation into his financial just misreportings. Made a mistake. 155,000 public servants strike today in Canada. House Republicans can't even pass their own anti-immigrant legislation, it seems. Iowa next up to loosen child labor laws. Ron DeSantis goes to Washington, then gets largely ignored. Meanwhile, Trump's aggrievement bounce starting to fade. The FDA authorizes a second bivalent booster for 65 and up and immunocompromised folks. Administration makes COVID vaccines continued to be free for uninsured. DOJ charges a Russian national with working with a couple of Americans to sow disinformation. Sort of a disturbing set of charges, particularly for those Americans. Airstrikes hit Khartoum airport as civil war escalates in Sudan. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Emma Vigeland not here today. I have licensed the right to say the following from her for money. It's Hump Day. And a lot of news, obviously, to get through. We've got a couple of guests. The biggest story, we should say, is that we only have really only a couple more days of selling that effing dork t-shirt at shop.majorityreportradio.com. So you better get on it. Shop.majorityreportradio.com. Obviously, no, the big news is a settlement in the Dominion defamation suit against Fox News. Now, we should tell you that this is not the only major defamation suit that Fox is facing. This one was held in Delaware. There's another one in New York from, what is Votomatic? What did they call? Smartmatic voting machines. They have a similar argument to be made here in terms of defamation. I suppose one could argue, and I don't know, to be honest with you. But that Smartmatic wasn't as mentioned as much as Dominion, although hard to suss that out, and whether that is really relevant. One could say, you can assess the relative value or damages in those two cases. Unclear we're going to get any further with the Smartmatic case than we did with Dominion. Obviously, Fox has to pay a lot of money. They're used to paying out money. They obviously made the calculation. This is the amount of money that we can pay. It's cost of business. They did not have to apologize. They acknowledged that some of what the court found was accurate in that they were inaccurate. There are also other subsidiary cases. The judge appointed a special master to look at the behavior of Fox in the discovery process. Here is Dominion Voting System CEO John Poulos speaking to reporters after the Dominion settled with Fox News.
Fox and Dominion have reached an historic settlement. Fox has admitted to telling lies about Dominion that caused enormous damage to my company, our employees, and the customers that we serve. Nothing can ever make up for that. Throughout this process, we have sought accountability and believe the evidence brought to light through this case underscores the consequences of spreading lies.
So there are, some consequences, obviously not as interesting for those of us who wanted to see folks like Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity have to testify, Pirro and Rupert Murdoch and et cetera, et cetera. However, this is the biggest defamation settlement in the history of defamation settlements. There was a bigger defamation award from a court, and that was, of course, against Alex Jones. Last year for his defaming the Newtown parents of kids who were slain. But this is the biggest defamation settlement on record. That's going to hurt them a little bit. The interesting thing here, and here's a comment from attorneys for Abby Grossberg. She was the producer for, I think it was Pirro and Tucker Carlson, who had information and apparently recordings that were not included in the disclosures and discovery, which I think is going to be an issue for the special master. But she was told to lie, essentially, in discovery and during depositions. This is what she had to say through her attorneys. While we congratulate Dominion on a truly precedent-setting settlement, we cannot help but be reminded how Fox News' penchant for paying out notoriously large settlements to resolve lawsuits exposing its unlawful conduct, whether it's troubling allegations of workplace discrimination and sexual harassment and misconduct, to accusations of spreading malicious lies, have unfortunately to date failed to bring about actual meaningful changes to the network's abhorrent culture of lawlessness. Fortunately, our client, Abby Grossberg, remains committed as ever to obtaining vindication of Fox News' violations of not just her rights, but the rights of others whose voices have been silenced, who fear retribution for exposing the truth through her 2 lawsuits against Fox. Our firm will continue to zealously advocate on her behalf to see to it that she succeeds in bringing about a truly real and meaningful institutional changes at Fox News through every vehicle available to us in our legal system. So there's a bunch of lawsuits that are extant. None that may have the potential to bring this type of money, but some that may actually have more potential to force the issue of the case. Dominion's a business, $760 million or whatever, $790 million. That's a lot of cash. I can't honestly say that if we were suing Fox for defamation, that I wouldn't take $790 million instead of going to trial. Although what I might do is I might take like $350 million to get through most of the trial. I'd probably walk away for even, let's say, boo, I don't know, $3 million. That way I can avoid the 90% top marginal tax rate that I want. I'll just take the $3 million. As long as I get to see, I want to cross-examine Tucker. That's what I wanted. Also, one other thing to note, and Angelo Caruso, is that his name at head of Media Matters? Yeah. Check out his Twitter feed. Maybe you can pull this one up. It was from a couple of days ago, but it explains something that, I've known for some time in terms of like the cable news business. Fox News, not only does it have much wider distribution on cable news companies around the country, not just on the coast, but also in the middle of the country. They got there early, and they also relative to, let's say, MSNBC, much broader clearance is what it's called. Because of the fervor of their audience. And because they also attract like people who are not as partisan, but want to watch the freak show, they actually not only have more access to more cable companies, they are, I believe, the number 2 most profitable from getting fees from the cable companies to carry them. So some outfits, they don't get any carriage fees whatsoever. In fact, some outfits even pay a little bit to cable companies to carry them. Fox, after ESPN, is number 2, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of getting carriage fees. And according to Carusone, they are looking for a bump on those fees because they've lost a lot of advertising, but they don't make their money through advertising in the same way. They make their money through the carriage fees because people want their product so badly that people, call up and say, like, I'm not even going to get, it's the same with ESPN. Like, if I can't watch live sports, I don't need cable. If I can't watch Fox News, I don't need cable. More people are likely to say that. Even if more people watch ABC. And so they get higher carriage fees. At the end of this thread that Carusone has, he mentions a nofoxfee.com website where you can go and tell your cable company, I don't want you to pay Fox's fee. Because understand, if the cable company pays a fee to Fox, a carriage fee, they pass that on to you. So it's bad enough that Fox may be playing, in your local, whatever it is, bar, but you're paying for that, whether you want to or not. So worth a visit there. A couple of words from our sponsors today. My favorite sponsor, Sunset Lake, Sebede.com. Oh, grab me those stickers. This is exciting. I mean, I don't even, we're not selling these stickers. We'll give them out. I don't know when we'll give them out because I never see anybody, but these stickers, I love them. They send me these stickers. Right now, Sunset Lake, Sebede.com and the Majority Report, we are teaming up to turn 420, which is, of course, the classic stoner holiday, I don't know why, into a fundraiser for the Last Prisoner Project. Last Prisoner Project is a nonprofit organization dedicated to cannabis criminal justice reform. Things are so messed up. Like right now in New York, right? We have dispensaries opening up. You can grow your own 6 plants. You can, medical, but also recreational usage is now legal. Yet there are states in this country, many states, where kids get taken away if you get caught with like, I don't know, half an ounce of pot, where people are in jails. You still have people in jails. People, all across the country. And so it becomes even more sort of like absurd and just twisted when, I don't know, a third of the states, half the states, perfectly legal to have a plant. And in other states, you can lose your kids. But anyways, that's Last Prisoner Project works on issues like that. But here's how it works. Starting, last week, everything on sunsetlakesebede.com will be 30% off with their special code 420. Orders over $150 will get you a free jar of gummies. And that is your choice, which jar of gummies you want. You can get the melatonin ones. You can get the good vibe gummies with a little trace of THC, or the sleep gummies. Well, that's the melatonin ones. You can get the sour ones, which are just CBD. You get to choose. And the whole point is 30% off. You get $150 worth of CBD products. You have had huge savings, and you're bulking up. I use their products every day. Used it last night. Melatonin gummies. Sometimes I mix it up with the tincture. Sometimes I take the melatonin tincture. I don't even know why I operate that way. I think it's usually like if I can remember, I'll take the melatonin gummies. But if I can't, then I'll take the tincture. I don't know. I love all their products, honestly. And they also sent us, and look at these. I don't know what we're going to do with them, but they did the Sunset Lake CBD. I love that. Sunset Lake's biggest sale of the year ends on April 23rd. You got 4 days. Don't miss it. Head over to sunsetlakesebede.com. Take advantage of this deal. Help raise money for cannabis criminal justice reform. Some restrictions do apply. Also, other sponsor today, Henson Shaving. Best razor I've ever owned. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer. They've made parts for the International Space Station. They've made parts for the Mars rover. Now, they're bringing precision engineering to your shaving experience. Look, I've had a beard now for a year and a half, I think it is. I only shave here, really, for the most part. A little bit on the neck, but mostly here. I did not want to waste plastic. I did not want to have to pay for a subscription. I wanted a great razor. I found it. Apparently, on top of which, the discomfort that you suffer from razors, not a function of the blade. It is a function of the distance in which the blade protrudes from the shaver. The longer the board, the more wobble, more nicks, more cuts, more scrapes. They use aerospace grade CNC machines. Those are computer something machines. Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. It is less than the thickness of a human hair. That means secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. It gets better. The razor has built-in channels, which you can see right there. So you no more have to bang it on your sink to get out to evacuate the hairs in the shaving cream. And the beauty about the Henson shaver is that they want to be the best razor, not necessarily the best razor business. There is no subscription. You buy it once, you are done. There is no plastic. There's no proprietary blades. There's no planned obsolescence. It works with standard dual edge blades, give you that old school straight razor shave with the benefits of new technology, that just the precision here. This thing pops off. You put the blade in right in between there, and bingo bango. It costs you about $3 to $5 a year once you buy the razor. $3 to $5 a year to buy the blades for this. However, they are giving my audience a 2-year free supply of blades for free. Just go to hensonshaving.com/majority. That's HENSON shaving.com/majority. Add a razor. Also, put the 100-pack of blades in your cart. Then enter the code majority. You get the blades for free. The link is in the description to the podcast and the YouTube. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. They got some very cool razors too. I have this one, but I also have an all black. I like the all black. It just looks super cool. And it feels cool. So check it out. HensonShaving.com, I think it is. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Patrick Rucker, finance reporter for the Capital Forum and contributor at ProPublica, on a piece that he co-wrote with Maya Miller and David Armstrong, how Cigna saves millions by having its doctors reject claims without even reading them. Be right back. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. Joining me, Patrick Rucker. He's a finance reporter for the Capital Forum and contributor at ProPublica. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Your piece you co-wrote with Maya Miller and David Armstrong, how Cigna saves millions by having its doctors reject claims without reading them, details really the methodology of the way that insurance companies more or less make their money, which is to prevent people from getting health care. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the way they're in the business of selling people a product and not having to fulfill the promise of that product as much as possible. Let's just start with, how did you guys find out that Cigna was using this methodology to perfect the business practice of not providing the product, essentially, that they imply they're going to provide for you?
Yeah, essentially, the insurer makes a promise to the patient, which is, look, you might not like all of our decisions, but we are going to treat your care seriously. We're going to, if your doctor says you need a certain thing, we are only going to question that judgment if we can provide our own doctor who's equally trained and has his own opinion that says it's wrong. And then, in your mind, you can imagine a fair playing field where, like, their doctors and your doctors can sit down in good faith and figure something out. So what was happening was Cigna. And
wait, I just got to stop you here too. We should say that's after the fact, right? I mean, just
right,
even
these
like
claims.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like that's a very charitable perspective on the way that they present it. But as a customer, nobody's ever said that to me. Like, nobody's ever said, like, our doctor's going to consult with your doctor and we're going to make this assessment. No, I don't know. Like, this is, I don't even know how to buy it. Back in the old days, I didn't know how to buy a stereo. You go into Tweeter, et cetera, and they'll sell you like something with a big woofer, because you're just like, I don't know. I certainly don't know anything about medicine. So the assumption is, like, if the doctor says I need it, the insurance company is going to provide it.
I think that's a fair starting point. And if they were going to challenge it, and you got a letter that you opened and it was signed by a doctor and says, I, Dr. Patrick, say that this is not necessary, you might be thrown for a minute. Like, well, gosh, I mean, my doctor said I need it, and this is a doctor and they said I don't need it. So maybe I am confused. But in fact, as we report, these doctors are signing tens and thousands of these denials without even looking at the patient file. They just get a stack placed on their desk. It's already primed with the denial language, and they more or less stamp it with their electronic signature, and they go flying out of Cigna. And United Healthcare has a similar program where they say, under a doctor's signature, denied. And as a reporter who covered the financial crisis, I can tell you it rang very similar to the robo-signing scandal of 10, 12 years ago, which was, the bank's like, well, these guys don't have a right to their house, so we got to get them out one way or the other. And more or less, this paperwork's okay, so let's just find a way to sign this and move on. And in fact, as the scandal broke, these signatures that were taken to be by a qualified person, these notarized legal documents, had not been looked at in any meaningful way. And I think any fair reader would look at what's happening at Cigna, United Healthcare, and ask if this isn't the same thing.
You talk about one doctor, the doctor that I guess the subject of the piece, who has happened coincidentally, or maybe not so much of a coincidence. Maybe that's why this happened. You have a Dr. Van Teradine whose claims got rejected by a Dr. Cheryl Dopke. And you report that Dopke denied 60,000 claims in 1 month, which, rough math. I don't know how many, I'm assuming she's not working on the weekends. She's working like 22 days a month, work days. That's 3,000 claims a day that she is denying. And I think he broke it down to 1.2 seconds on each case that they're denying, saying that the treatment provided was unnecessary, and so we're not going to cover it.
You summed it up. I don't know, and Cigna didn't answer how anyone could conceivably look at and make a meaningful. I can't scratch my head in 2 seconds. So I don't know anyone who would expect someone to make a medical decision in less than 2 seconds. And as we report, they don't even look at the file. So the mystery's sort of solved. They're not making a medical decision. They're not opening a file. They're just getting stacks of denials and signing them.
And they're not actually even physically signing them, because I don't even think you could do that 1.2 seconds. They're just like clicking a button, and they're authorizing. Okay. So how did you guys first come to understand that this was happening at Cigna?
Well, suffice to say, there's enough people within the insurance industry, doctors who had other walks of life, maybe other administrators who came into this profession, and things just didn't sit well with them. And things frankly gnawed at them that they were doing, or that they saw either directly or out of the corner of their eye, that were not, didn't seem fair or on the level. And this is one of them.
What are the requirements in this instance, right? I mean, because I know you guys in the piece talk about that you approached regulators, and the regulator said, this doesn't sound right. But like, what statutory requirements does Cigna have, and do they change from state to state? Like, this sounds horrible, but is it illegal or contrary to their requirements under what auspices?
There is health insurance is, without dragging the viewer into too much into the weeds on this, there's different types of health care that are regulated different ways. A big chunk of it is regulated at the state level. So that's 50 state insurance commissioners. You can go online right now and type in wherever you live, like, who's my state insurance commissioner? And it's probably someone you've never heard of. Very few of them are elected. Most of them are appointed by the governor. And those people are responsible for policing the industry. And there is a general, I can't answer for every state, but there is a template for a fraud statute that is floating around, has been floating around for more than a couple of decades, about fair treatment. And fair treatment includes essentially that you've reviewed my case in a meaningful way. What any of those state regulators are going to do about the story and the facts that we presented, we're asking those questions now. But I think if anyone, this makes you uneasy, you need to get in touch with your regulator, because they might have answers that we haven't been able to get.
How many states does Cigna operate in?
It's big. I mean, it's one of the top 10 operators. I don't know. I'm sure they have at least a smudge in every state, but I don't know. It started out as a Connecticut company. It's been merged in many different ways. They administer reviews for other companies. They have like specialty review systems. So even Cigna, there's a company called Evercore some viewers might know about that. They do reviews on like radiology, scans, specialists who do blood work tests. They go under the Cigna umbrella, and yet they're due to a lot of consolidation. They're all over the place. Sorry, just to say, United Healthcare, which is the largest provider, as we were saying in the story, is doing something, essentially conceived this thing even before Cigna. So our understanding this practice is pretty widely in place.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is there any reason to believe that all of the insurance companies aren't doing this? I mean, how if Cigna, let's put it this way. If Cigna, one of the biggest companies, is spending 1.2 seconds per application essentially for care and rejecting them in 1.2 seconds, how could any other insurance company even begin to compete with that if they weren't doing something similar?
Just on the basis of a cost-saving tool or a cost avoidance tool, it'd be hard to beat this system. So these guys have a lot of incentives to develop ways to save money. So we need to do more work, but I think you're right. It's hard to imagine that something that is this effective hasn't caught on more widely. And just to say one thing, one of the guys who conceived it is in the story.
Yeah,
I mean, he
Mooney, is that his name? Mooney,
yeah. Who's now advising. He's more or less retired, but he also has some roles advising private equity and other investors about how to get the most out of their insurance investments and their insurance operations. But he estimates billions of dollars saved for the industry through this practice.
Okay, and let's talk about that. When we say billions saved, he tries to make the argument this is keeping the cost of insurance down. But if that was the case, if Cigna was saving so much money from this, their insurance would be markedly less expensive than anybody else's product, right? I mean, in other words, these savings, and it's almost a perversion of the word, because it's like, it's arguably fraudulent on some level. These savings are really just shareholder dividends, right? I mean, this is all almost exclusively going into the profit making of the industry. This is the way they make money. They deny claims.
They never stop trying to find ways to deny claims. That's a fair statement. I don't know anyone who's going to dispute that, because they want to, as you started to say, every penny they don't have to pay out in a premium or in a payout to a patient is money they get to keep. What they do with that money is up to them. Do they want to give it to their shareholders? Maybe they give some to their clients, to the big employers who rely on Cigna to operate their healthcare system. Maybe, but we don't know. We do know that it's up to Cigna to decide what to do with that money they saved.
Right. But I guess my point is there's no obvious evidence that this is in some way suppressing the cost of health insurance. The savings that they're getting here are more than likely ending up as profit, as opposed to like, this is what's really depressing the cost of health insurance, which of course goes up, exponentially every year almost.
Judging by the cost of health insurance, judging by the massive amount of money that's spent on executive compensation, I think that question is hanging out there. Yeah.
Is the DOJ, is this something the DOJ would look at? I mean, I understand it's insurance regulators on a state-by-state basis, but I also would imagine that Cigna participates in ACA exchanges. I would imagine that there are, there's got to be some federal investment in these insurance companies not denying claims. And we should also, we'll get to that in a moment, but has the DOJ, have you guys gotten a comment from the DOJ about this?
This would take, I think in the first place, someone who's got to take some initiative, whether that's Justice Department, a U.S. attorney, attorney general of a state, one of these insurance commissioners. Some are more aggressive about consumer protections than others. We're going to keep reporting this, but I think these are fair questions, and the more that these questions get raised, they're going to have to answer them, but to us or to viewers and listeners or somebody. But no, we're asking if there's anything to be done about this.
You also mentioned that, can you distinguish why this is different than the way that Medicare and Medicaid go about these, making these determinations?
It gets back to this promise that the private insurer makes. And I hear what you're saying. Like, maybe some people are so cynical, not so cynical, they've got reason to think that they don't take this in good faith. But if you just take them in good faith and they say to you, we are going to review your claim in a meaningful way. Medicare and Medicaid, they don't ever make that promise. And not because they're like cold-hearted, just because like, look, we were on a really lean ship. We don't have profits. We don't have all these other complicated financing stuff. We just, apply, appeal is a process you can turn to, but we're very straightforward. You want to appeal, it's straightforward. You get a yes or no answer. It's the private insurers operate by a different system where there's this implied promise that they're going to, if they're going to fight you, if they're going to say no, they're going to have to get someone in a lab coat to say that this doesn't work. It's not just going to be a bureaucrat or some administrator.
And they built in and do projections on how the appeal process is going to go. I mean, to appeal this is like, one of those things where, I subscribe to whatever it is. I buy a subscription on an app, and then I can't figure out how to cancel it, and I just give up, and I just keep paying the $2 a month or whatever it is. They built that into their process. That's part of their business plan too. Will you talk about what you've written about that as well?
Sure. Let's say the vitamin D. Well, there was another example we use of a test. It's a test we use the test for diabetes or other like autoimmune diseases, but it's essentially a test of, does Patrick sweat in a normal way when that's stimulated? Does Patrick have good balance? It's a battery of tests like that. And Cigna decided we don't want to pay for this anymore. And the policy was going to be on Monday, we pay for all of them, because this is sort of important. These are really only processes that cost a few $100. That Cigna for a very long period of time was like, it just costs too much money to fight these. Just pay the thing. Just pay them all. So on Monday, they would pay them all. And on Tuesday, they would deny them all. And the difference was only that they would say, we have a medical director has decided this is not necessary. What did that mean? It just meant that someone had rubber stamped this denial paperwork. So getting back to your question, which would be something that they would feel like they could deny, and people might howl about it a little bit, but they'll probably just stomach it. One was this balance and sweat test. It's called an autonomic nervous system test. As we got a presentation, a corporate document that shows how they had it down to the dollar about how much they thought how much it cost, what percentage of people would appeal. It was low single digits. So they're like, based on this spreadsheet, they're like, well, not that many people. So even if we had to reverse ourselves and pay for all those, it's not that much money. They estimate that as well. So yeah, very much. Let's just say that number was 50%. And that's, it's not 5% of people are going to howl about this, but it's half the people we say no to are going to howl about it. You can bet that would change the formula for whether or not they would go ahead and try to deny all these claims.
All right. So just to be clear, what's going on here, again, their business plan is not what will keep the patients the most healthy. Their business plan is what will cut, like, what is the number of denials that we can get to where the denial is at a certain dollar figure, that it's going to impose the cost on the patient, that it is too small amount worth their time to climb the hurdles that we will put in front of them at a certain cost to us, so that we can basically say, like, this wall is impenetrable. And then people will just not want to engage in the appeal process, and they'll just give up. And there's a lot of like assessment and analysis and certainly more than 1.2 seconds to going into making those calculations but it has nothing to do with medicine, nothing to do with the health of the patient, has all to do with like what is the amount of resistance we can provide that will make it not worthwhile the customer, the patient, to fight this is basically their calculation. And that's the way they figure out whether they're going to deny or approve a claim, as opposed to having anything to do with your health whatsoever.
We talked to a lot of doctors inside the industry, outside of the industry. We've reviewed hundreds and hundreds of documents. And I can tell you that nowhere do we see anything about the decision. They will talk about the health of the patient, yes, in a kind of an oblique way, but that is not at the heart of what they're talking about. It's either how long is this going to take and how much is this going to cost would be the key metrics you see again and again.
And just as an example you guys gave in the story of a denial was a doctor called for a blood test, suspecting that there was some deficiency, vitamin deficiency that the person you were writing about had. And they found that he did in fact have a vitamin D deficiency, to the extent that it could have like implicated the integrity of his bones. But they said the calling for that test was unnecessary because there was no evidence prior to the test that he had a deficiency in the vitamin, which of course you could only know through the test. I mean, this is Joseph Heller Catch-22 stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, I was reading that and writing that and thinking, is this going to land the way it does to me? Because it was like you said, it was a paradox, Orwellian, I don't know what, but you're right. We do not believe that you qualify to get this test because you have no evidence of having done this test. Yeah, Joseph Heller would be nodding along to that, I think.
Absolutely crazy. It's a great piece of reporting. I hope somebody in the Department of Justice or in some U.S. attorney's office or state regulator's office is reading this, because it is just I mean, frankly, I happen to believe that they can't survive without doing this kind of stuff. And, if we had regulators who were really on the ball about it, these insurance companies, the industry, their business plan doesn't work if they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do. And so these things are, it's really important piece of reporting, and I appreciate you coming on to talk about it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Andy Blanco. He is a percussionist with the Distinguished Concerts Orchestra and a member of the American Federation of Musicians Union Local 802. They've been on strike for 2 months now. We'll get the details on that in just a moment. Be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. Joining me, Andy Blanco. He is a percussionist with the Distinguished Concerts Orchestra and member of the American Federation of Musicians Union Local 802. Andy, welcome to the program. This is exciting because you are literally in a practice space. I can hear you're a percussionist. I can hear the drums in the background. You're not playing them, obviously, during the interview. But what do you play? Do you play the big drums, or like what do you play?
Yeah, as a percussionist, we're required to play anything in the percussion family, and that goes from instruments as small as the triangle to as large as the timpani and the bass drum.
Okay, now what orchestra do you play in, and where does it usually do its work, and in what context?
So, Distinguished Concerts International New York, DCINY, they are a concert promoter and producer that operates in and out of Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. They're a promoter that sells a professional concert experience to amateur choirs and amateur singers. And so since 2009, they've been selling these experiences to tourists and amateur musicians, and they've been hiring professional musicians to accompany these choirs. And in 2019, the musicians decided that they wanted to have a contract. We had been performing for over 10 years without a contract. And we unionized in a highly successful organizing campaign. Unfortunately, since 2019, we've been, trying to negotiate a fair deal with DCINY, and we have yet to reach an agreement.
All right. And so just to be clear, my daughter did her chorus performance at Carnegie Hall this year. She had a performance there. Unfortunately, or I guess it was last year. I mean, I had COVID at the time, so I missed it. But would that have been something like, and then you guys you're the orchestra? Is that what's happening there? Or is that the type of, theoretically could have been? I don't know if you actually were.
Theoretically, that's exactly what they do. So the company solicits either church choirs or school choirs or community choirs and says, hey, we think that you'd be great to come to Carnegie Hall and perform. You'd love to have this experience, right? They're selling the experience of it's part arts, it's part tourism, it's arts tourism, right? So they come to Carnegie Hall, they sing on stage, they get that experience, but what they're selling is that professional level,
right?
Concert,
of course,
right?
Yeah,
and so when they pick a piece that would normally be accompanied by an orchestra, they hire professionals. Members of our orchestra play with the New York Philharmonic. Members of our orchestra, play on Broadway. I mean, we are top level New York City freelance musicians, and that would be the type of situation where we would generally be accompanying a choir.
So you guys unionized. How hard was the unionization process? Like, how hard did they fight the unionizing that you guys did back in 2019?
Right. So in 2019, we began unionizing in January, talking, musicians, talking to each other, seeing what we wanted to do moving forward. And as soon as we went public with that I believe it was either end of June or beginning of July, they immediately, they wouldn't voluntarily recognize our union. They sent emails and physical mailings to every musician on the list and on the roster, how this was a bad decision, all the just standard anti-union talking points. We're a family. And
I was going to say,
why would you choose the union to come in and take over the situation and all of these things? So anyway, we had our vote at the end of July, and we won with 89% of the vote. So, it was pretty unanimous that the musicians didn't fall for any of those talking points.
Okay, and so they have not obviously been bargaining in good faith. If it's been over 3 years now, that they have not, been able to work out a contract. So you guys went on strike. What was this? 2 months ago now? We're at.
Yeah. So we've had to file 2 unfair labor practice charges. Obviously COVID put a little pause on a lot of things and, performing, but it seemed that they were using that as also an excuse to not negotiate. Like concerts were canceled and we said, hey, even though we're not performing, let's sit down and negotiate so that we can have an agreement when
perfect time to do it.
Perfect time to just get on Zoom or whatever and and make a deal. And they kept kicking the can down the road. We don't have any concerts scheduled. There's no way that we can meet. And we finally had to file an unfair labor practice charge at the end of 2021, when they had concerts scheduled in the spring of 2022. And they settled, and we finally got back to bargaining. So, we bargained all of 2022, and I guess it was either November. It was November of 2022, where basically talks just stopped. We would present some proposals, and we weren't getting any movement on the other side. So we submitted to federal mediation, and we thought that would be a way to get some movement and get some progress. And nothing changed. Nothing changed in their position. So it was soon after that the musicians had finally had enough, saying, we're going to go on strike.
And so have you guys been walking the picket lines? What have they hired scabs? What's happened over those 2 months?
Right. So right now, our kind of goal for going on strike, one, was to kind of draw the line and not allow them to have the professional orchestra that they've used and that they've been successful with, and also basically a public service campaign, publicity campaign, letting the choirs know that the professional orchestra that they are expecting to hear and expecting to perform with is not being treated fairly. So we're outside the concerts with leafleting the audience, leafleting the choirs, walking the picket line, and just letting everyone know where we are with things.
And have they gotten scabs to fill in for you guys, or what are they doing? Are they just basically having, playing records?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they've since we've been on strike, they've had some musicians play with them that aren't part of our orchestra, that may or may not live in New York City. They get these choir directors from all around the country, and sometimes the choir directors bring in their own musicians. The organization is on the AFM, the National Musicians Union unfair list. So really, there shouldn't be any excuse for that scabs wouldn't know that they're on the unfair list or that there's a strike going on.
How can folks listening now help you guys out?
What you can do is you can go to the local 802 Musicians Union website. It's at local802afm.org. You can do /DCINY and find out more about where we are and our story. I think there are links there also to a letter writing campaign. You can write a letter to management letting them know that you support the musicians. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and every now and then we have things that people can do to support us. And
what about the venues themselves? I mean, if these things are happening at Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center, or what about pressuring these venues to not essentially house scab workers who are trying to hurt the professional musicians who really, make these places worthwhile to go? I mean, Carnegie Hall has great sound. Lincoln Center has great sound. But if you don't have great musicians, it doesn't matter.
Right. That is an excellent question that deserves to be discussed. When you have a cultural institution such as Carnegie Hall, you expect a certain level of professionalism there, especially if the company is selling that a professional concert experience. Unfortunately, the way that it works right now is these venues are doing a four-wall rental. They're just renting out the space to the producer, and right now they don't have the responsibility to maintain certain work standards to the whoever's renting it out. That, I think that's something that could and should be discussed, with our union and our elected officials. And, if a cultural institution is receiving, federal funds or, then maybe there should be a certain standard.
I guess, from my perspective, they have a responsibility only to the extent that the people who go to these venues hold them responsible for it. And I would imagine if a lot of people wrote letters to Carnegie Hall, and Carnegie Hall started feeling like the people who attend functions there don't like the idea of them essentially, partnering or having a client, or however you want to say what the relationship is, that a Carnegie Hall or a Lincoln Center is, essentially helping with this project of harming the union and harming the musicians. I would think at one point, whether they perceive they have a responsibility or not, they're going to feel some heat, in my mind. So maybe, people, it doesn't necessarily have to come from the union, but I'm not part of the union. I think people should write Carnegie Hall, frankly. That's what I would do. In fact, that's what I'm going to do after I'm done here. But we will put a link to the website in our podcast and YouTube description. And good luck, Andy. Really appreciate you coming on and telling us about it.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. The dulcet tones of drumming in the background, that was perfect for what we're doing. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. You can buy merch. We only have a limited amount of time on the effing dork shirts. It is a way. I don't know what happens in the spring. I don't know if it's because I don't know if our numbers are up, more or less in terms of viewership, and people may be more engaged or whatnot. But I don't know what it is in the spring. I run into more people. Maybe it's just more people are out and walking around and not cold, and so they're a little bit lackadaisical as they walk around. They see people, but I run into more Majority Report listeners and viewers this time of year than any other time of year. And if you're walking around with a Majority Report shirt, you are bound to run into another Majority Report listener. This is the way that we find each other. And then, what you should do, you get together and you write Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center and say, it may not be your responsibility who rents out your place, but these people are attacking professional musicians. And if it's not possible for professional musicians to make a living, then at one point, you're just not going to have any value to your venue. Anyways, effing dork shirts. Shop.majorityreportradio.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority. You get 10% off. Cedar Seeds. We're having our 420 sale. Check that out, cedarseeds.com. Put in the coupon code 420. And then put a free packet of Trainwreck in your checkout, and it'll be free. On top of the other packet, because you want to plant a bunch of seeds, because you don't know, like some aren't, some will take, some won't. The majority certainly will. Then you've got to sex them. We don't know. So check that out as well. So check all that out. ESVN on Monday. What did you guys talk about?
Yeah, that's we had a recap of the first week of the NBA playoffs, as well as the preview for the NHL action that's just started these past few days, and we also talked about Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts' record-setting extension. So you can check that out at youtube.com/ESVN show.
Celts dominated the Hawks last night.
They're playing great.
They are peaking right at the right time.
Exactly, and Bruins as well. It's a good good time for Boston sports. I'll
Sure
say.
is. Things that happen in the Worcester Red Sox are doing good.
Exactly. all over, Matt.
They just got
Chris
called
Sale
up.
with the 11 strikeouts.
Also, Left Reckoning. Do you know what happened last night on Left Reckoning? Did Matt get out of jury duty?
Yeah, so
jury duty.
It seems as Matt was successful in getting back in time for the last night's live stream. They spoke to a friend of the show, journalist Cole Stangler, based in France, to talk about the continuing protests, why Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron, or President Macron, is targeting workers' retirements, and how successful the resistance to those efforts have been. So you can check that out at youtube.com/leftreckoning and patreon.com/leftreckoning for the postgame.
646-257-3920 is the number. We will be back in a moment. We'll take your phone calls and your IMs. See you there.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun.
Oh, no.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. I will open up the phone lines in just a second. It'll be 646-257-3920. Some IMs. Diego, Sam, what would you say the best way to try and get positive change to happen in deep red states such as Arkansas? I would, have patience. I would start with. And I don't know, maybe try if there's I don't know if there's a DSA chapter in, locally to you, but start to organize. Maybe you organize folks you work with, folks in your town. Find an issue where you can start that organization and go from this.
Yeah, and I also think with what we've seen in Nebraska with the state legislators like Michaela Cavanaugh, who's been, trying to filibuster to avoid anti-trans legislation and stuff, like with the Tennessee 3 as well in Tennessee, I think also finding, or at least trying to, encourage your state legislators who are probably in blue areas in red states to kind of try and take action like that is probably also worthwhile, just because it's kind of one of the few ways for really legislators to have a whole lot of power in states like Arkansas, where there are probably, I don't know, maybe 5 to 7 delegates in in terms of their disparity.
Understand that in a state like that, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trying to build an organization, some type of network that is going to exist and wait for an opportunity. And so you're preparing. You're not going to be able to take any power now. All you can do is prepare yourself for an opportunity that may arise. And ultimately what you may be doing is just forcing, conservatives, Republicans to expend resources in a place they don't want to expend it and helping in other places of the country. But that's what you can do. And that's worthwhile. It is worthwhile. As of this morning, I have above ground growth in my 4-inch planters for 4 out of 6 cedar seeds. Very exciting, says Tim Pool's economic researcher. Weld Fedatel. I sexed my cedar seeds only to find that they were all male. Now I'm turning them into hemp paper for my handwritten letters to Carnegie Hall and the Lincoln Center, turning lemons into union aid. Coladict, late to the show, but I thought the health insurance company scamming customers is the business model. Getting prosecuted for it is the aberration. That was actually my argument with the reporter. El Conniption. The right time to peak for the Celtics is definitely not the first round of the playoffs against a woefully underclassed team. Laugh my ass off. The playoffs are the time to peak.
Yeah. Well, also, I think it's good that they're blowing them out, too. They're not having close games with the Hawks. They're beating them by 20 points each.
Well, according to El Conniption, it'd be better if they were struggling.
Yeah. and then heat up later.
Chardonnay Socialist. What you say is true. I've had many great conversations with folks who notice my MR gear. Leftist bastists are generally pretty cool. Jennifer from St. Louis. I was wondering if I could get a shofar from my friend Elaine, who I worked with at the New York Shakespeare Festival. Passed suddenly. She was a prop master and a scenic artist and will be very missed. This goes out to your friend Elaine. Sorry. Watch out, crew. Cracker Jacks have gone woke by adding a limited time promotional mascot of Cracker Jill to celebrate women in sports. According to my aunt's friends on Facebook, this is disrespectful and racist. Sam, fantastic. That was from Chibbles. Creamster's local number 69. Oh, geez. Sam, fantastic interviews today. I think the crew's thoughts on Marianne Williamson's candidacy have been made clear, but now that RFK Jr. has officially launched his campaign to challenge Biden, do you guys feel any differently about him? I know you have a long history with him, and I was curious about your thoughts. I don't know that he's officially declared. I think he's just done an exploratory committee, but it seems like he may. I mean, I've talked about, it's been a long time actually since I've spoken to Bobby. We used to do Ring of Fire radio together. Probably, maybe it's been like 7-8 years since that happened.
Seems like there's an event happening like today that Dave Weigel, friend of the show, is at for RFK campaign.
Well, nevertheless, let's assume for the sake of argument that he's running.
Right.
It's possible that I haven't worked on the radio show with him for 8 years ago. I haven't done the radio show in the past 2 years. But I did it with him for 5 or 6 and worked with him at Air America. When I was working as a waiter at Bartley's Burgers, doing comedy in Cambridge, Mass. I was working at Bartley's Burgers, and I served him coffee. And I was so excited. And, you know, the work that he did, the environmental work he did for the water keepers, hugely important. I would say that he was vaccine skeptical during most of the time that I knew him. And, you know, when I first started doing Air America in 2004, there was a lot of talk. The autism rates had either gone up or had been identified more. And there was a theory that it was the inclusion of thimerosal, which is a preservative that was in vaccines up until I think it was 2003. And in 2004, I remember doing an interview or two about this where, you know, what seemed to be the rational position at the time, I still think it was rational at that time, was they've taken out thimerosal out of most of flu vaccines. I, at that time, got, vaccines for Mila that were thimerosal free in 2005. And so if thimerosal was the culprit, we would see a change in autism rates. And we didn't. And I think the last I had checked in with Bobby about this is that he was convinced that there was still thimerosal in the vaccines. And I'm like, well, it doesn't, like, what if that's the case, like, why can't a doctor say, I'm going to send this into, a lab and say, can you test for thimerosal? It didn't seem to make sense to me. I think his, I understand, I think, from like a psychological perspective, like why he would be very skeptical of a lot of things, frankly. Am I going to be supportive of his candidacy? I mean, I don't think so. There's a lot of things that he, in the past, haven't followed what his rhetoric is these days, outside of being like, a skeptic of the whole, of all of COVID, frankly. It's a shame because, I mean, frankly, like if his essentially use of his public persona had not been dedicated to those things and had remained, where it was like a question of like the commons and environmentalism, I'd be much more inclined to be supportive of his running. But, I don't want to promote or platform somebody who I think is being, at best, irresponsible. I really don't, I don't know. And so that's that. Let's see. What's your favorite fig? Chicago Hardy? Smith would be great for your area. I got to look into Smith. So I've tried Chicago Hardy and I had a problem with that one. Couldn't do it. Didn't work out. All right. I'm undoing the phones or opening the phone lines. 646-257-3920. In the meantime, I thought this was pretty funny. There's a report. We saw yesterday Kevin McCarthy go to Wall Street. Maybe it was Monday, to show his cards, as it were, show his hand on the debt ceiling fight. He has no hand. He has no hand to play. He was talking about means testing more SNAP. I mean, it's already means tested, but just putting work requirements on SNAP and this and that. basically going to Wall Street, and many people speculate it's a way of him saying, like, we'll work it out. Because Wall Street's terrified at the idea that we would default on our debt for the first time in the history of the country. Meanwhile, the House Republicans are trying to pass a border security bill because they find anti-immigrant rhetoric to be extremely helpful to them electorally, but they cannot find the votes to pass their own bill. So Kevin McCarthy's having trouble to do that. In the meantime, the big promise of the Republican Party was they're going to get to the bottom of all of this Hunter Biden stuff. Now remember, the Hunter Biden laptop stuff was suppressed, but now it's supposedly not suppressed. And I still don't know what it is because there's no there. I mean, Hunter Biden, effed up dude, has had substance abuse problems, a problem apparently with, like, you know, sharing dick pics and, you know, problems that you see with individuals in our society all the time. But in terms of our government, in terms of corruption, what has there been? Well, let's bring on James Comer. He is the government oversight chair. They've been doing all of the yeoman's work on all of this Hunter Biden stuff. They've been holding hearings, explosive stuff here that Comer has. Here it is.
So as chairman of the House Oversight Committee, you have been investigating members of Joe Biden's family and their business with the Bidens. Have you found anything illegal while he was actually in office?
Well, we found a lot that's certainly unethical. We found a lot that should be illegal. The line is blurry as to what is legal and not legal with respect to family influence peddling.
Family influence peddling. I, for one, am very much in favor of a society where we do not have nepotism, where people do not trade off the names of their powerful parents or brothers or sisters and cash in. Like the idea that, like, my father-in-law could be president of the United States and I would get billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars in loans to save my business. That would be nauseating to me. Or if my father was, let's say, president of the United States and I had huge licensing deals with China or something like that. Yeah, that would be bad. Or if I'm Hunter Biden and because my last name is Biden, I get put on, a board of directors because the company assumes that I've been hobnobbing with all sorts of, like, important people and those connections are valuable, which is exactly why people get put on boards of directors all the time because of their networking and their connections. Do I think it's unfair that famous peoples or people who have famous parents get stuff like this? Yes. And I'm glad the Republicans are finally cracking down on this. But it is hilarious. It should be illegal what they did. What did they do? Well, Hunter Biden got hired for stuff because his last name was Biden. I agree. I don't know if we can make that illegal, but we should definitely be living in a society that isn't based on connections. Legacy admissions into colleges and all sorts of things like that. But it is hilarious. This is the stuff, incidentally, like, this has been the animating factor. This laptop has been the animating factor for an entire political movement. Everything. It's why supposedly Donald Trump lost the election in 2020, because we didn't know the exact contours of Hunter Biden's private parts. Here's Comer now, who obviously wants to get this Hunter Biden laptop information out there at all costs because it is so damaging to the Biden administration. He wants to get it out there. He's going to disseminate it everywhere except for anywhere.
You just mentioned a lack of transparency, and I'm wondering because Jamie Raskin on your committee has accused you for a lack of transparency, not sharing information, not sharing the Hunter Biden laptop drive with him and other Democrats on the committee. As you well know, House rules mandate that all evidence is shared between both, the majority and the minority parties. So what do you say to that? I want to give you an opportunity to respond.
Jamie Raskin has got to be joking. I mean, he's led 2 impeachments of Donald Trump. He was on the January 6th committee. He didn't work with any Republicans. When we do subpoenas,
well, pause it. Hold on for 1 second. That's not true. There were Republicans on the impeachment committee.
Just ones he didn't like.
Just ones he didn't like. In fact, the Republicans on the impeachment committee, they practically made them chairman of the committees, right? I mean, Lynn Cheney.
Yeah, Kinzinger.
I mean, my God, why do even I know Kinzinger's name? And they offered to share with all the stuff. It's just they didn't want to participate in it. But this is the Hunter Biden laptop. Why wouldn't you disseminate this? Release the laptop.
Jamie Raskin has got to be joking. I mean, he's led 2 impeachments of Donald Trump. He was on the January 6th committee. He didn't work with any Republicans. When we
have
do
you
subpoenas,
given him the Hunter Biden laptop drive? Have you let Democrats see that?
Everybody has the Hunter Biden laptop drive. ABC has it. The Washington Post has it. The New York Times has it.
So you haven't given it to him. Okay.
Well, he can get it himself.
And
the truth will out. I mean, this is the drop dead information that every single day we have to be told that because this stuff wasn't released, now everybody has it. And what's the story? What's the story?
He can find it.
Like, where's the story on the Hunter Biden laptop? Where is the information? Hunter Biden sat on the board of a subsidiary company that sold their shares to I think it was a Chinese outfit after the majority stake owner sold all their shares, in which basically prevented the minority stakeholder from owning any of the shares, and so they sold it. Like where's the story here? There is no story. It's fascinating. And it's also, I have to say, it's the only time I've ever seen it work. Like at one point, like the reason why you hear no substance to the Hunter Biden story, or even pretense of substance to the Hunter Biden story, is there is no substance at all to the Hunter Biden story. The only story about the Hunter Biden story is about how after the Post supposedly got it and wouldn't share it with any other news outlet, so no news outlet could report on it. It's not like the New York Post is considered like, I wouldn't stake my reputation on repeating what the New York Post says. I would want verification. Usually in those instances, they'll share the raw data. They wouldn't. And so nobody trusted the Post because they wouldn't share any of it. And it turns out with good reason, because there's no there except for the fact that somehow Hunter Biden lost his laptop. And we're told this is the earth-shattering story of 2020. It's fascinating. And it's worked in the sense that, like, good. We don't see wall-to-wall coverage like we did with like Benghazi for 8 months, 2 years.
Which almost makes me feel like either the salience or the action, I'm wondering if it's the salience or the lack of information that is more the reason for that there being a lack of saturation in terms of like the media coverage. Like I'm wondering if it's more that it doesn't play with anybody or doesn't play with viewers, or if it's just like there's so little there that it's not even worth trying to probe, or even because honestly, even Fox anchors like Bill Hemmer, I think, had Comer on and literally was like, this has been investigated for years now. At this point, there's been no evidence. Like, even they're sort of frustrated with the lack of like anything to peg their coverage of the last.
I think that probably a lot of it is just like, Hunter Biden going, Dad, can I have like 10 grand, please? And Biden's like, sure. I have a feeling that's like what it is. And I think it all just makes Biden look sympathetic, probably. I have no idea.
He's like a good father to
I have no idea.
Kid,
yeah. Or just a guy who's like, his son's messed up. Son had a messed up childhood, loss of a mother, loss of a sister, ended up losing his brother. I don't think that makes Joe Biden, some type of, saint, or his politics are good because of it. But in terms of like electoral politics, which is all they care about, it probably makes him look sympathetic. I don't know. Totally. I don't know. 646-257-3920 is the number. I will take your call if you call in and I get to you. Can't promise we're going to get to everybody because we got 25 calls stacked up, and I'm not a magician. Calling from a 424 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello, is this me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. My name is Oscar Oliva. I'm from Compton, California.
Oscar from Compton, California. What's on your mind, Oscar?
So last night I went to the city council meeting, and there was like this huge uproar, mostly because the city council doesn't really take care of its firefighters. They haven't had a contract since 2019, and they haven't been adequately, paid well.
Okay.
Another issue with the fire department is that they don't get really like sorry, I'm a little nervous.
You're doing fine.
Their department is really like deteriorating. There's fungus, there's mold growing in the bathrooms. The city council not really doing much of like anything to help them out. Also the shortage of employees. A lot of when they try to train the new firefighters, since city council doesn't really treat the firefighters of Compton that well, the new recruits see Compton as a stepping stone into like a better fire department. But the thing is, Compton is the only one that's doing this. Nearby cities like Southgate, Downey, and Paramount, they're all taking care of their firefighters, and that's where other firefighters are going. There was just a bunch of people last night there, and they weren't very happy. They're frustrated over the department, public safety, and street takeovers. Street takeovers are insane here in Compton because of the notoriety. People come over here they tag on Instagram, over here in Compton doing donuts, whatever. But yeah, that's about it.
All right. Well, appreciate the call. Hopefully, it's pretty amazing when people go after firefighters. That seems politically not a bit of a mistake. Let's go to calling from an 812 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Did we get that? 812. Calling from an 812 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Is there somebody there?
Yeah, I'm seeing him. Maybe.
All right, we'll throw it back into the pool. Try again. Calling from a 703 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, is this me?
Yes, this is you. Who's this?
Hi, this is Michelle in Brooklyn.
Michelle in Brooklyn. What's on your mind, Michelle?
Yeah, so first of all, as a communist coming from a family of libertarians, I just want to say I love hearing you take these idiots down. I wanted to ask you your opinion as a leftist about how you feel about exporting labor overseas.
How I feel about exporting labor?
Yeah, like companies, large corporations, using cheap labor in other countries. Like, what is the leftist perspective?
Oh, not exporting labor, but exporting jobs, outsourcing jobs.
Yeah.
it's a dilemma a little bit. I mean, in terms of like, one, it's helpful on some level to increase the living standards of people living overseas, but I'm not quite convinced that it's always necessarily with the best protections. I think there are some that I would be okay with, I guess, but others that I think we need to be able to provide jobs in this country. I don't know if I have a better answer than that. Frankly, it sort of depends on the country. It depends on the industry. I think we should allow, labor to have the same sort of ability to move as we allow capital to. But I also think that we should be doing more for our people in this country outside of jobs to make it not so cutthroat of an issue.
I see. So from your perspective, just like providing more services for people so that their, for example, healthcare isn't dependent on
exactly. If we decommodify things like healthcare, we decommodify things like at least partially, college and universal pre-K and daycare. If we decommodify, to some extent, housing, the idea of outsourcing jobs becomes less critical, frankly.
Right. And so do you feel like also, even if all of those things were in place, maybe regulations on, how cheap labor can be if a company outsources it?
I mean, the biggest problem, I can just give you an example. When we did NAFTA, the idea was supposedly we're going to raise the living standards in Mexico, except for we were told that, that part of NAFTA is going to come later. The worker protections, the environmental protections, was going to be the fix of NAFTA. That stuff never came. And so you ended up really screwing up Mexico, because what really happened in that situation was our corn cost a fraction of what their corn cost to produce. It destroyed, a lot of sort of what was happening in rural Mexico in terms of farms and agriculture. And it didn't have the impact that was sold to us in terms of helping the Mexican worker, essentially. And so it's a really, how do you ensure that? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
How do you know?
No, I agree.
On the other hand, I think to a certain extent, it has helped raise the living standards of people, across the globe. So I think there has to be better regulation. There has to be better requirements in terms of worker standards. And I don't know how much I trust the system to provide that, Also, in this country, we need to make work not be such a method of, frankly, of blackmail for survival,
Right.
to put it in a pithy way.
I guess I just haven't really had a cogent answer for my stance on exporting jobs. But yeah.
I mean,
go
ahead.
Do you happen to know any people who write on this particular issue from a leftist perspective?
I don't know who talks about outsourcing jobs in this way. I mean, I think we've hit, it feels like we've hit and are sort of insourcing jobs more now than in any time over the past 30 years. because I think the corporations have hit sort of like the peak of what they can get out of that.
Right.
And the limitations associated with that. But I would like to see, like, let's allow, we're going to outsource jobs. Let's also allow like labor to cross borders a little bit easier too, on some level. So
sure.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see. We'll try 812 one more time. Calling from an 812 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. 812. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is John from Indiana.
John from Indiana. What's on your mind?
Sorry about that. I had a business call come in, so I apologize.
Well, la-di-da. I also had a business call. It was with you. You just didn't answer.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Yeah, Sam, thanks for taking my call. I really, I've had a lot of thoughts over the last few weeks, and I've been trying to call in to kind of get them across. And I don't know. I guess what I would really like to talk about ultimately, that because I've spent a few weeks thinking about this, is I think your show has a bit of a blind spot that I think
just
you
one
could fill in the. Well, I mean. I think you guys do really good coverage on trans issues for the most part. I think you guys need to have more trans people on your show, though, and more callers. Or, I mean, I don't know. I called you out on Twitter. I imagine you saw that. I was being inflammatory so as to capture your attention. So, I'm sorry for doing that, but. I don't know.
I did not, but go ahead. All right. So say what your point is.
So my biggest point is that this whole Anna Kasparian thing came up, and I feel like a lot of people have sort of got some whiplash from this and have not really wanted to call it what it is. And I think only really one person in that leftist media sphere, which is Oleami, I can't say her name right, just called it out as being a grift, which is immediately what I thought it was. And I don't know. I feel like you guys kind of dropped the ball on that because you never put the tweets up. You never showed the context, and you've got a lot of listeners.
Didn't I address this like before? I mean, I wasn't here. My understanding is that things progressed somewhat last week when I was out. But 2 or 3 weeks ago, I thought I addressed it, didn't I?
You did, and that was me that had called in. You spoke to me.
Okay.
And so like I was trying to call in because people kept talking about the tweet as if it were a tweet, and it was actually a lot of tweets.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I saw that one tweet from Anna, and that's what I was responding to. I'm not on Twitter as much maybe as people want me to be.
Sure.
I don't, there's this sense that like, I won't talk about TYT because I'm friends with them or because I do business with them. Like I've known Cenk for, a long time, but he lives in LA. I mean, I've probably spoken to him in person, I don't know, maybe 10 times over the past almost 18 years.
Sure.
I've been on that show. At one point we were, part of the YouTube network, and just to make this clear to people, the relationship that we had in business was I was their client. In other words, I paid them money to optimize our YouTube channel and we did that for far longer than I think like a business person who had a business sense would have done it, because I didn't want to have to manage somebody doing that for us. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't care and this and that. So I was never getting money from them. I don't have some reason, nefarious reason not to criticize them. But I also don't feel a huge compulsion to observe every tweet that they do or what's on their show. I cannot express to people how misguided they are in terms of what they assume I watch on a daily basis. I don't have enough hours in the day for me to monitor what TYT is doing. And I think, like, on balance, my sense is, and, you know, I've always, you know, considered myself to the left of, like, you know, of Cenk. Like, I had arguments with him 18 years ago or 15 years ago about the Bill Clinton administration. And, you know, but that was just like, I was invited onto the show or I was on the show or whatever I was. And that came up. I mean, it's not like I'm, you know, monitoring them. And so I think, like, you know, I thought that tweet was ridiculous. Do I know
that's
why?
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay,
because she
if
had a lot of responses.
Okay, if she's tweeting all this stuff out, I'm not defending her, but I'm not
saying you are, but I'm saying that
you're saying it's incumbent upon me to be polite. Wait, let me finish. You're saying it's incumbent upon me to be monitoring her tweets so that I can provide a super accurate representation of what her ideology is. I criticized her tweets.
But I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you're going to weigh in on it, you should have all the facts, and that
I just weighed in on one thing, and that was the tweet.
But the show's weighed in on it 3 times. It's very clear it makes Emma uncomfortable.
Well, of course it makes Emma uncomfortable. I mean,
but she didn't have to address it. She could have said, "Hey, you know what?
We were getting 20 IMs about it. We didn't have to address it.
I think. Listen, I think you do have an. I think you have an argument. Hold on, John. You have an argument.
Yeah.
We could have said, and I've done this at times, like, you know, like with something with, like, some of the Louis C.K. stuff. I said, you know, Louis. I mean, I'm not in touch with him in the same way I was, but Louis was a friend of mine, and I know this from a different perspective. I don't want to weigh in on it. And I suppose that, you know, Emma could have said, I'm not going to talk anything about it whatsoever, but it's not like, but hold on, John. Hold on.
Okay.
The responsibility we have, okay, in talking about this stuff, and I don't even like, you know, like, I like going after right-wingers, but when I do a segment on Jimmy Dore, or when I do a segment on you know, Steven Crowder, I like there to be something in there that I can also, that is around an issue that I can pivot off of. There are times we're not, you know, 100% faithful to that. There are times where we, like, dip into, like, what's the psychology behind this? You know, like, a guy like Dave Rubin is just such a joke that we would do that for a while. But I don't see as my responsibility to provide the TYT report. Okay?
I'm not.
And hold on, John. Let me finish. And it is not like Emma has hidden the fact that she used to be on TYT, that she works with TYT, that they're friends of hers. So everybody has, like, it's a full disclosure. When I talk about Matt Taibbi, I make it clear, you know, Matt used to be a friend of mine. Matt did part of his podcast when he started his podcast with Green. They did it out of this office. And to the extent that I make any speculation as to what he's doing, you know, I do it based upon what my firsthand knowledge is. I have no firsthand knowledge of what Anna or Cenk. And to the extent that Emma does, like, she said what she's comfortable with. I didn't see, you know, what her responses were. I was out of town. But maybe the issue is, like, you want the show to do something differently than it is. That's not our responsibility.
I feel like this is a disingenuous framing, because I want the show. The show's addressed it 3 times, never put up a single tweet, never mentioned the fact that she's liking tweets from transphobes.
I don't know what she's liking tweets.
I know that you don't know that. I know that you don't know that, but your viewers, people are pointing it out. I tried to hop in your YouTube chat last week to tell viewers who don't know this, and your mods muted me.
Okay.
Because people don't know this.
Okay.
Like, people aren't on Twitter. They don't know this. And her birthing person inclusive language shit goes back to February of 2022 when Sandy Lovis went on TYT and explained it to them. So when this whole grift happened, it was like, Sandy is a MR contributor and was writing on Twitter about, like, my whole point is, if you
your point is that I have not done enough homework on monitoring her tweets, and I'm telling you that's not my job. That's not my job. I know you want it to be my job, but it's not my job.
Saying that.
I can't go through every single YouTuber and give an assessment.
You could raise your YouTube comments where people said this kind of stuff.
Wait, dude, do you think, let me ask you a question. Do you think that I have the time to go through all of our YouTube comments?
I mean, you could go through a fraction of them.
Well, which fraction?
Which fraction?
Which fraction should I go through?
My point is
just
you
yours.
Guys run a business. You guys run a business, and that's fine. But you act.
It's not
like
a business. This is not a business decision. This is not a business decision at all. That's what I resent, is the implication that somehow I'm not doing this because I'm afraid of offending TYT or somebody else. I'm saying I'm not going to read every YouTube comment.
You never even explained properly why the inclusive language was important. You went about
what?
Like,
are you serious?
Yes, because Sam, I
You're saying that on this program, I've never said why inclusive language is important?
I never said that okay. What I'm saying is, and what trans people were saying is, the malicious compliance aspect of what insurance companies will do to them and how dysphoria will keep, like, you talked about it as sort of this polite thing, like, it doesn't cost me anything to use inclusive language. That's great. But it costs trans people their lives when the language is not used.
Well, wait. I didn't just say it cost me nothing to use inclusive language. I'm saying that's one half of the equation. The other half of the equation is I'm talking about almost on a daily basis. We talk on this program about the legislation that is happening in over almost over 20 states. We talk about the attacks on trans people. We talk about what it does to trans kids. I mean, I'm sorry if we're not doing the job you want us to do in policing Anna's tweets or Jank's tweets or anybody else's tweets, and I'm not reading enough YouTube comments for you. But
I mean, they've been running a 3-year grift at this point. Like, it's pretty obvious.
No, it's not. Listen,
I'm not saying
it's obvious to you. It's not obvious to me.
It's obvious to a lot of people that they've been running a right-wing grift for 3 years at this point.
Good. I mean, you just want me to do something different than the show is doing. And
what I wanted was for Emma and you to either not address it or to bring on a trans person to address it or to do your homework. It's been addressed 3 times on the show without showing a single tweet.
Did we not put up the tweet?
No.
All right. Well, you know what, dude? Never. I'm sorry. Well,
but you would do it. But you've done it for plenty of like you'll spend all this time.
I'm hanging up on you. I gave you 13 minutes. Listen, here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. I'm sorry. No. Like I just want to make this absolutely clear. That like this policing Anna or TYT is just not one of my priorities. And I understand that there are people who watch the show who want us to have different priorities. If the issue is that we have in some way been bad on trans issues, then that's, I think, a legitimate, I would disagree, but that's at least a critique that I can address. But I've been doing this now for 18 years. There's always people who want the show to focus on one thing versus another. And it's just, I'm sorry. Find a show that is focusing on what you want it to focus on and do it. It's just, there's nothing more frustrating. And listen, if you think that I'm not saying enough about whatever MSNBC because I haven't really gotten paid from them in quite some time, but that I'm, if the critique is that you're not being critical of TYT because of a business relationship or something like that, that is at least a critique that I can address. But I cannot address the idea that I'm not policing what tweets Anna is liking, or I'm not reading enough YouTube comments to find out that she's liking these tweets. Like, it's just not a priority for me. There's, a lot. I don't even know. I will not even make this assessment. There are actors out there that I perceive I can address better or maybe worse than what I saw. We talked about the tweet. I think we read the tweet if we didn't put it up on the screen. I don't, it's not a conscious. We don't have a big operation here. I mean, do people understand? We don't have this like.
Well, I just wanted to say
the light goes out.
Yeah,
I fix it.
Sam changed the light this morning.
Well, the bathroom's dirty. I clean it. Not enough, but I do try and do it. It's like we every day. And it's a race to organize this shit. 2 minutes before the thing, I'm still writing stuff out. I don't know if people have this perception of we've got, some ocean of people here working. We're putting up graphics. I mean, it's pretty obvious. This is pretty lo-fi here.
But I also just want to say, I think it's a kind of, from my perspective, when I was here when we were doing a lot of the reaction because when you were out, Sam.
I apologize for taking vacation.
No, you should be. I know, but Emma. If the critique is that we didn't show the tweet, I just think that is a kind of a granular critique when Emma did absolutely address the substance and her position on it multiple times. And I also reject the idea that the entire viewership here or anyone keeping track of what was going on Twitter or online or whatever would have been okay with Emma not saying something. I can see the messages.
Well, of course,
I can see the messages we get. I can see the emails we can get. I can see her Twitter mentions. You can see her Twitter mentions. If she's damned if she did and she's damned if she didn't, she'd be seen as keeping silent or being complicit if she didn't say something, and anyone's going to critique or nitpick everything she did say. So it's not fair to say, oh, you shouldn't have said anything and that would have been better, because that's not true, and it wouldn't have been true for Emma either.
No, I mean, I think that's, I think that's, I think it's just unreasonable. Frickin' Freak says, I think that person is saying that TYT is actually a right-wing centrist project that we should probably highlight more than we are. And all I can say is that, look, the TYT has been doing this for 20 years. There are, again, I don't watch their show. I don't watch really any other show. Except I don't even watch this show. But I don't think that they're a right-wing project. I think that's absurd. They may not have, politics that you agree with at certain times, but I don't think they're a right-wing project. If there is more evidence that comes out that they are a right-wing project or their positions are, but do I think that Anna's take on that trans language, to the extent that I'm aware of it, is bad? Yes, I made that very clear. But if it becomes clear to me, at one point it became obvious to me where Jimmy Dore was headed, and a lot of people were very upset that I said that 8 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was. But that's what I saw, and that's what I said. He was with TYT at the time. I have no problems calling it out. In fact, I ran into Cenk at some conference, and he's like, how can we, how can we work this thing out with you and Jimmy? And I was like, oh, you can fire him. That's how you can work it out. Like, I don't, people, like, I'm not holding back anything. It's just that, like, I'm not deploying.
You highlight the YouTube chat.
I'm just like, I'm not deploying my time or efforts in the way that you want me to. And because I've made a determination for myself as to like where my efforts are best concerted based upon like what I see. There's 1,000 fires out there. And I'm looking at the biggest ones and the ones that have closest proximity to and where I can reach the hose and pour on the water. And that's the way that I operate. There's no other nefarious thing here. I'm not worried about offending anybody because I'm not really friends with anybody. Like, I mean, that's just.
But I think it's absolutely right in the sense of like, we have a finite amount of time. We have a finite amount of.
Even though I've expended now 45 minutes on this.
But that's what I'm saying is that even us spending this time is at the expense of whatever else we could
Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And Jules Winfield. Trans people, we feel like we're under attack from all sides. The critique is just a critique. Hoping someone of your stature, who we all look up to, will fight first. That's all. I mean, I'm trying to do that. I feel like, and I am open to, again, I am open to a critique of like, you're being insensitive in this area. You're not aware of this. I mean, I have on multiple occasions have made it very explicit that, in December or November, or maybe it was December or November of last year, I thought like, okay, Michigan proves that attacking trans people is a loser, and we're not going to see Republicans go down that road. And it was an IMer, I think it was, who corrected me and said, you got to pay more attention to the legislation that's being passed in the states now. And I did. And I don't know, it took me a day or two or whatever it was. Came back and I was like, I was mistaken. I was wrong. And we started referencing Aaron Reed's, is it Aaron Reed? Who, has I think it's a Google Doc and is tracking these things and I may pay more attention and, but I mean, people have to realize the limitations. I understand. I mean, I get it. But like when it gets down to like, I'm not covering what tweets Anna's liking enough. We're losing. And look, people want to come up with a dossier and write up a document. Honestly, there's nothing to hold you back from writing up a document. But if you're going to make me comb through YouTube comments,
that's also just the funniest thing.
The right fraction of it to piece together, over time, like, it's just, you're not doing your job.
A little inside baseball before we move on from this, but I just want everyone to know that even when Matt is here, I am the only person reading YouTube chat unless Matt is fighting with somebody in the YouTube chat. So
yeah, I can't possibly do it.
Sam is not going to be signal boosting certain YouTube chats.
All right. Shoot. All right. Let's see what else we got here. All right. Let's talk about this. This is a clip from a parent in Martin County, Florida school district, about books being banned at in his son's class. Again, this is happening in DeSantis' Florida. DeSantis, incidentally, this guy really, really is attacking Disney in a fascinating way, which, if there was ever like a government panel to see weaponization of a government, maybe they should take their road show down to Florida. But here is this parent. This is pretty powerful, I think.
Spent the last decade of my naval career fighting religious fascism abroad. Never thought I'd have to fight it right here in the United States of America. I grew up in rural South Carolina, and books got me out of the trailer parks. My parents trusted those educators and the librarians to let me read what I needed to read. I spent 21 years in the Naval Nuclear Propulsion Program, where Admiral Hyman Rickover said a questioning attitude was the key to success in the nuclear power program. I want my son exposed to different ideas and different viewpoints so that he can learn to think critically and not be force-fed somebody else's opinion. We've all been exposed to different opinions. Makes us better, makes us stronger. Adversity has made me stronger. I didn't sacrifice 21 years of my life to stand idly by while religious fanatics and other fanatics try to impose fascism on my country. I urge you to think about what a book ban needs and use transparency. I don't need anyone else telling my son what he can and cannot read. I'm very perfectly capable of determining that for myself. Thanks for your time. Thank you for listening. I urge you to remember the Little Rock Nine. Thank you.
There's a real problem in not just in Florida. I mean, this stuff is going to travel around quite a bit. We had somebody call in yesterday about the Texas library that's going to get shut down because this is going to start happening all around the country. I mean, and even worse so if DeSantis, gets some prominence from it, because every other Republican governor is going to see this, and they're going to start going for it. With that said, Ron DeSantis not doing so great. Let's play two. We got one more clip of Ron DeSantis here. He went up to Washington, D.C. to meet Republican lawmakers and ostensibly draw support for his nascent political campaign. I don't know if this release came out while the guy was actually meeting with him, but it just gives you a sense of of how much Donald Trump owns the Republican Party. Lance Gooden, he is a Republican from Texas. And what time did he release this? Keep going. Can you go down a little bit? What time was it? It's at 6:00. So that they had a meet and greet at 4 p.m., end of the day, right? Like cocktail party type of situation. He writes, today, after careful consideration, he may have even written this up while he was talking to Ron DeSantis. After careful consideration, a positive meeting with Governor DeSantis, I've decided to endorse President real Donald Trump for 2024. I look forward to fighting alongside him to reclaim our country from the leftist forces trying to destroy it. And he posts this thing. I met with Governor DeSantis, and while he's done commendable work in Florida, there's no doubt in my mind that President Trump is the only leader who can save America from the leftist onslaught we are currently facing. President Trump is a tireless fighter. I'm not even going to read any more of that. But
just amazing that he met with him that day and then came out of the meeting and was like, you know what? I can't do it.
And the interesting thing is that Ron DeSantis has been involved in this fight with Disney. It started when Disney put out what was not a strong message, but like a tepid criticism of his "Don't Say Gay" bill. And DeSantis went ballistic and tried to basically Disney has a weird relationship with the county or whatever, the municipality or whatever it is that they're involved in. And there was a board, and it's
They have an improvement district or something like that they sort of have some non-governmental oversight over.
I can't quite figure out. But DeSantis orchestrated a takeover of this board, which ostensibly would run all of Disney's sort of the infrastructure in this sort of quasi uncharted. And Disney figured out a way to basically sever their relationship with the board, as DeSantis did. And DeSantis got pissed. And he's been trying to figure out for months how to get at them. And then he shows up at this press conference. Remember now, this is just about them critiquing his Don't Say Gay bill. This is just bizarro behavior. Like, and I think, let's play this.
If you look at this whole special district, Walt Disney Corporation obviously owns a lot of it, but the district owns other land. And, quite frankly, I wasn't even thinking about that land. This was not something that was really important one way or another. We just wanted them to live under the same rules, pay the debt, pay the taxes, all that stuff. Oh, but come to think of it, now people are like, well, what should we do with this land? And so, it's like, okay, people have said, maybe have another, maybe create a state park, maybe try to do more amusement parks. Someone even said, like, maybe you need another state prison. Who knows? I just think that the possibilities are endless. And so that is now going to be analyzed to see what would make the most sense. And that wasn't necessarily even on the radar.
I can assure you they're not going to put in a state park there. But this guy's going after Disney. And listen, I don't mind corporations having to pay their fair share of taxes. I don't mind rolling back some of their patent rights and their trademark rights. But when you talk about weaponizing government, this is exactly what you're not supposed to do. They disagree with my politics. I'm going to go put a prison next to Disney World. We're gonna choose this land to put a prison in. We're gonna put a rival theme park in on the state land. I would imagine this is also part of the reason why Ron DeSantis is not getting anywhere, because some of his big potential corporate donors are going like, this guy is a little bit too much. This is, I don't know if DeSantis thinks that this is like, he saw Trump do this. Because Trump was trying to do this like with Bezos, right? And do it in the wrong way. The way to do it with Bezos is like, we're going to do a wealth tax. No, of course, Trump doesn't want to do that because he'd be subject to it too. But this guy's like fasci. This guy's authoritarian. This is the same guy who's like, I'm going to mispronounce. What word was it that he would mispronounce?
The thigh food?
Yeah, the thigh food. Just to see if someone's going to go along with him saying that or not. He's going to be corrected by it.
It's also just fascinating, like...
Remember, also...
Yeah.
Yale and Harvard?
Yep.
Yale undergrad, Harvard law school.
Yep. Super
and there's
in that regard.
and this is also like this dynamic that we see with DeSantis, and frankly we see with a lot of Republicans, is the same dynamic that we saw with the trans issue in that New York Times article yesterday, which is there's this implication, like there's this like force out there that's forcing them to do this. There's this force in the real people are forcing these politicians to be responsive to them. Because a Harvard educated, Yale educated guy, he's not going to be this fashy. But the fact of the matter is, no, they can be. And there's evidence there that it is. There's no constituency who's going like, we really want Disney to pay their infrastructure things. Like, I mean, it's conceivable, I guess, maybe they're like, local Orlando officials, but...
Or putting a state prison next to Disney World?
Yeah, I don't think there's a constituency.
Yeah, who's the market for that?
It's the biggest employer in the state.
Right, so yeah, let's put a jail next to it.
Yeah.
While you're driving there to Magic Kingdom, see a prison on the horizon.
But when you see the Times or when you see other writers, talk about like DeSantis is harnessing something or the Republicans are harnessing like this, no, they are them. And they're not harnessing something. They're creating it. Demagoguery is not like something where you sympathize with the demagogue. We're like, hey, what is he going to do? He's just riding the wave, man. No, you know what? They got a wave machine. The water's there, but they've got the wave machine. When you're focus testing stuff, that's not riding a thing. You're saying, like, where can I build this? I don't know if it's working with DeSantis, though, because that's the thing. He's such a true believer, this guy. I think he scares some of, like, the, you know.
I think it's legitimately off-putting to some people.
I mean, the beauty of Trump, I think, for a lot of these Republicans, to some extent, is that, like, he's transactional. He's super transactional. Speaking of Trump and DeSantis, of course, the key difference between Trump and DeSantis is that Donald Trump pretends that he will protect Social Security and Medicare, whereas DeSantis pretends that he won't attack Social Security and Medicare. And Donald Trump has more sway over the Republicans in this argument. Here is more evidence of Republicans who want to cut Social Security, and it's so knee-jerk. Here's Matt Gaetz not realizing anything about Social Security when he calls for cuts with Steve Bannon on the War Room.
Jody Arrington is on top of things. He is very competent, and he laid out a budget menu to the members. And frankly, I thought that it was going to be milquetoast, and it was bold and it was effective at meeting the challenges that we have to meet. And it did not slash the defense budget, which is something that I would not support. I don't want to fund the defense budget of Ukraine and other countries, but I do believe that we ought to have the most technically capable military in the world, and we ought to have a qualitative edge over any potential adversary now and in the future. And so the Arrington budget would, I think, have pleased the Hawks.
Without touching Social Security and Medicare?
I believe that we have to have a discussion about raising the age of Social Security. I think that is not a likelihood with Joe Biden in the White House and a Democrat Senate. But do I believe that forever and always the age of Social Security will be what it is
But did
today?
Arrington's budget get to a balanced budget in 10 years with going just
Pause it for 1
Medicaid
second. This is why you know that Republicans are just, who say things like this, are so full of shit. First off, they want to cut Social Security. They want to cut Social Security. Raising the retirement age is cutting Social Security. But here's how you know it's just knee-jerk. They want to cut Social Security because it allows them to continually cut taxes, and it diminishes the pressure on raising Social Security taxes. The retirement age is not static for Social Security. The retirement age right now is full retirement, where you can take you can take early retirement, you can take late retirement. It diminishes your benefits if you do it early. Obviously, if you do it later, it increases. But the point where you're eligible for full baseline retirement has been going up slowly on a month-by-month basis over the past 10 years. Right now, I think it's still at 65. When I retire, I am 56, it will be at 67. He does not know this. This was part of the deal put in place in 1981 with Alan Greenspan and St. Ronald Reagan when they knew the baby boomers were happening. It is also one of the most regressive ways of doing this. And I'll tell you why. Because there's idiots out there who say, well, when Social Security was put in place, life expectancy was 10 years younger than it is today. That is true for wealthy people. That is not true for the bottom half of the income distribution. When you raise the retirement age, it is a much more significant cut in benefits for people in the bottom half of the income distribution, who also generally are working much more demanding, physically demanding jobs. If you want to make sure that wealthy people do not get the same benefits out of Social Security relative to, it's a social insurance program. If I'm wealthy in my retirement, I don't need Social Security in the same way that 40% of Americans who rely exclusively on Social Security, exclusively, to keep them out of poverty. Others, there's another, I think like 20% who rely on Social Security in addition with other maybe pensions they have, 401ks or, to stay out of poverty. If you want to make sure that wealthy people are not relying on Social Security when they need it, or getting Social Security or getting too much from Social Security when they don't need it, there is a much easier way to fix it than raising the retirement age. And that is increase my taxes. Increase taxes. It is the easiest way, the cheapest way, the most efficient way to means test our society. Provide universal benefits and then just increase taxes in a progressive manner so that they go higher the more money you make in our system, the less you need government support. Or I should say, to rephrase it, your government support has come on the front end. It has allowed you, by structuring society in such a way, an opportunity to make this kind of money so that your skill set actually brings you wealth. Because we could set up society in a much different way where your skill set is not as valued. We could set up a society in such a way where we're just going to pay teachers $200,000 a year. All teachers. We're going to have teaching colleges free. We're going to build housing for teachers. We could structure society any way we want, where we could make sure, or at least increase the chances of different cohorts of people, not private businesses, but different cohorts of people make more money than other people. We could do that. But we don't. So you get yours on the front end. You get your government support on the front end. That's all. You want to own a house? We're going to give you a tax deduction for your mortgage payments. So the better way to put it is if you want to make sure that people who have already gotten their benefits from the government on the front end don't get more benefits on the back end, when there are people who didn't get their benefits from the government on the front end, need it more, raise taxes. That's it. What else we got here? This is pretty funny. All right, let's do something fun. Yeah, dude. What's his name?
Ethan Schmidt.
Yeah, where did we see him from? Oh, he's the guy who went into Petco and said I'm going to report Petco to the authorities or something, and it turns out that he was in a PetSmart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a some type of radical religious fundamentalist theocrat who goes into stores and complains about any corporation that is showing any sort of friendliness to LGBT folks, and also had an issue with any type of COVID protections. Here he is apparently going in some type of like park. Going up, he thinks he's being super clever, and he gets sort of owned by himself and showing what a moron this dude is. If you want to put out a video entitled, "I'm an idiot," this is what you would do. In fact, honestly, this would be a great parody video, but it was not. Here he is walking around some type of like state park, probably.
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Why are you wearing that chin diaper outside? It's a beautiful day.
What's that?
You're wearing the chin diaper?
Yeah.
Why? You scared of COVID? You scared of COVID?
Working here.
You scared of COVID?
No.
No? Oh, what's up with the mask?
I'm grinding the metal.
What does that? Oh, okay.
All
right.
Oh, that's so stupid.
The park ranger literally says at the end, he says, "Yes, get out of my face."
Unbelievable. First of all, who cares? Who cares why that park ranger's wearing a mask? If he wants to wear a mask, let him wear a mask. Who cares? How does that hurt you? It's all projection with these lunatics. It is all projection and authoritarianism. Like they claim that the mask mandates were authoritarian. No, they're the authoritarians. The mask mandates were for a reason, because there was a belief, I happen to think it was true, but a sincere belief that masks could protect people from COVID. There's some evidence that, in fact, it did. Certainly saw it relative to like masking in schools, community-wide spread, et cetera, et cetera. But even put that aside, the idea that like they're requiring us to wear masks for a certain period of time because of authoritarian impulses. No, the authoritarian impulses is when you see someone else wearing a mask and it has no implications for you, because you remember, you don't even believe that COVID is real. And you start to harass them over it. And then you're also too much of an idiot to realize that like people wear masks because they don't want to swallow fine particles of steel. Or if you've ever seen anybody do any woodworking, people wear masks. It's where people use N95 masks because they don't want to inhale small particles of, oh, you're not one of those like sawdust truthers, are you? You think sawdust in your lungs is going to be a problem?
You think that's bad?
Oh, you think your mask is going to protect you from that? No, man.
Fat chance, bro.
Morons. Absolute morons. But here is that same, is it the same guy? This is this guy, what's his name? Eric Schmidt? Ethan Schmidt. Goes in with like some ding dong, like riding shotgun with him. It's like, it's literally, honestly, it's like a modern day Don Quixote. And what is it, Sancho Panza? I mean, honestly, these
tilting at windmills.
Tilting
guys.
at windmills, and his partner just running. I mean, it's unbelievable, these morons. And this is actually great because he gets really handled well by this person. Check this out.
Sir, do you have the...
Oh, no, not this one.
Pride?
Not this one. Where's the one from the other store? No, the other store. Okay, let's take a phone call. Call from an 832 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Is this me?
Yes, this is you.
Oh, hi. This is Jasmine from Texas.
Jasmine from Texas. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to call in for two quick things. One of the first things is, and sorry, I'm a little nervous. I wasn't expecting you to get to my call with that like long guy about the other thing. But I just wanted to say that you guys are a huge reason that I'm a leftist today. I started watching you guys about 3 years ago, and I absolutely love the work that you do. I'm a huge fan, super excited. So thank you guys for everything you do. You've definitely converted somebody who used to be like a centrist libertarian vibe into a total leftist. So you at least got one.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Of course. My other thing is, and I know you guys were trying to do something a little bit more lighthearted, so sorry to bring down the mood again, but I've been really sort of trying to sound the alarm bells about this. And I'm not sure if you guys covered it last week or not. I wasn't really watching the show, but last week, Texas passed, the Texas Senate, passed SB 1933. And that one is would allow the state legislator, the state Secretary of State, to take over elections from counties. And they've previously tried to do this with other ones, specifically targeting Harris County in Houston, where I used to live. I live in Austin now. And as somebody who voted in 2020 using some of the expanded things, I did drive-through voting. Honestly, if they hadn't had drive-through voting, I wouldn't have been able to vote at all. And I can't even imagine other people who, for whatever reasons, work, which was what my issue was, drive-through voting just stayed open later, wouldn't be able to vote. So they're, just trying to take that away, and they're trying to target bigger counties. And it's so nefarious because a lot of the language is specifically targeting bigger counties. This latest bill actually, I think, is a little bit more broad, and it has more to do with anybody can sort of send a complaint to the Secretary of State about what's going on with elections, and then they can take it over. But it's really just like a masked way to say, like, hey, all you, red voters in bluer places, complain to us and we'll take it over. And what's really bad is it's also taking over voter registration. So it's not even just like the running of the election itself. It's also registering people to vote, being able to, look at voter rolls and say, like, this doesn't seem right to me, just because they happen to be more blue or something like that. So I just wanted to call in and mention that. I don't know if you guys have talked about it previously. But,
I hadn't seen that. I did see
Mm-hmm.
that the legislature, I got it here somewhere, in Texas also just passed another here it is. Limits on local regulations broadly, so that if bluer cities raise, and maybe this is also part of that, working standards or a minimum wage or water restrictions, that the state can override it. And I imagine this is there's two bills. You said the first one was what?
It's SB 1933.
And what is it in the House? Do you know?
I'm trying to read because I've been on Legiscan. That's how I try to keep up with things. I don't see the name for it in the House. I do see that the tracking for it in the House says that it's been referred to elections, so that's not great.
Right.
And it was already read for the first time on the 17th. This thing just passed on the 13th.
I would keep an eye on HB 2127 too, and those two bills could end up being combined, is my guess.
No, I have only lived in Texas for a little less than 10 years now, but I've lived in the South my whole life, and it's just really sad to see people who I grew up with, I grew up pretty conservative, then moved to centrist, then moved over as a leftist, and the more they insist that they're free thinkers, the more they end up supporting fascism, everywhere, and it's just, I'll make sure to keep an eye on that other one, but for people who didn't know about it, specifically targeting elections, they're really rolling out the fascism here in Texas, and I just wanted especially other Texans to be aware. If you can, go ahead and get registered now before things change. Hopefully, there won't be large purges, but I mean, obviously, just keep an eye on what's going on with your voter registration, because they're literally trying to take away our right to even try to attempt to turn this state purple. Not that I'm sure how successful that's going to be, but just keep an eye on it if you're trying to be politically active here in Texas.
All right, appreciate the call. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And
Of course. Have a good day.
send us an email if you can't get us through the phone to give us an update on that thing.
All right. Yes, we'll do. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. All right. Do we have time for one more phone call? 2:32. See how mad Bradley will get at me. Hold on one second. Let's see. Where is it? I wanted to find that video because they really. Oh yeah, it's the Build-A-Bear store, I think. Okay, fine. You got that one? Here it is. Okay. All right. Well, let's do both. Let's do the Barnes and Noble and watch. Yeah. Let's first do the Barnes and Noble, and then we'll do that. I just sent you the link to the Build-A-Bear.
Okay. So this one, he asks the clerk if there's a white history section in the Barnes and Noble.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Here we go.
Chris. I got like a quick angle of him.
You got black history over here. You got black history. Hey, excuse me, sir.
365 days a year.
I got a question for you. So you guys got black history. Is there a white history section?
I'd like you to go ahead and go, Ethan.
Excuse me, what did you just say, ma'am?
You can have a good day. I'd like you to leave now. Because you're harassing people, I'd like you to
I'm
go.
harassing people?
Yeah, I'd like you to go.
Ma'am, you're harassing me right now.
Okay, I'd like you to leave. Security's on the way, so you can either go because I'm telling you, or you could wait for security, but either way, I'd like you to go.
Okay, guys. Barnes & Noble promotes LGBT. They also promote witchcraft, and they promote woke black history, guys. So, Barnes & Noble on the wrong side, on the wrong side of history, on the wrong side.
Have a good day. I've been wanting to read this, so if it's not a big title.
Oh, you guys got me so good.
Have a good day.
You guys got me.
Weird though, because we asked if they were the witchcraft section.
Have a good day.
They just disappeared.
I love his Poncho Sancha guy.
There's an actual witch in here. There's an actual witch.
Like they would she disappeared. Materialize.
Vanish like witches?
Well, they said.
I mean, it's pretty great, isn't it?
Wait, was that you? Was that her?
No, it's not.
No, I
Have a good day, though.
remember.
Have a good day.
All right,
Goodbye.
well,
Are you vaccinated?
Be careful.
Goodbye.
Christ wins. Barnes.
What a moron. Unbelievable. The reason why we have black history section is because literally the rest of the history section is white history. People get that, right? That the issue has been that history for the greater part of our country's history has been written exclusively from the perspective of white people and about white people. The Dunning School was a complete mythological perspective on what the Civil War was about. And it was taught in this country as just history for decades. Go to the one that you were about to play before. The one that's on the list. Okay. This guy is such a loser that everybody in this mall knows who he is. And he thinks he's famous. But in fact, he's just like, here's this dude again.
He's back.
He's back. God.
Sir, do you have a gay pride section for children?
For children?
Yes.
I don't think we have one for children, no.
Thank God.
Pride table right there.
Thank God you don't have one for children. Thank you, sir.
Check it out. See if there's kid stuff mixed in.
Yeah, let's check it out though. Let's make sure.
There's his assistant. Man, what a sad sack.
You can't take them. You can't take their word for it. Sneak stuff in like a Trojan horse.
Here's the gay loser pride section.
Let's go.
this is honestly like the mentality of like an 11-year-old boy who's actually not a very good kid. Like it's not like I don't even want to like even like let him, but like we went over and said they were losers and they walked away. This is an adult who, incidentally, Jesus. I mean he does all this in the name of Jesus, is my understanding. Go ahead.
Gay loser pride section. Gay loser pride section. I'm just really tempted just to kick it down, man.
It's very unstable, much like their ideology.
They have it right in the middle of the store too.
That guy,
just
the
like a satanic
loser on the
shrine.
side is the best.
Excuse me, y'all vaccinated? What? Y'all vaccinated? You get the COVID-19? Yeah? Natural selection. Natural selection, they said, folks. Right?
Yes, sir.
But nobody knows what you're
natural
talking
selection.
about except for your little sidekick.
Schmidt, right?
What?
Ethan Schmidt, right?
Yeah.
I need you to leave.
Oh.
So if you would.
He's so excited that he
we
got
got Kevin.
recognized. All right, let's go. All right, and now here's the this. Let's do this last one at the. He goes into like I mean, like there were people. I worked at a. I don't know if I worked at the mall very long, but my girlfriend when I was in high school worked at the mall, and there was always like people who they thought were like, this person's a little bit, unsound, or this person is like, a nuisance. And they all knew who the person was because word would go around from managers. Sometimes people on breaks would, I'm friends with the guy at Spencer Gift, and I know somebody who works at Filene's Basement, and like, oh, did that lunatic come by? Like, but people weren't doing this type of thing. They weren't recording. It was always like, they're a nuisance. Like they're coming in like, I got to do some sweeping here or something like that. And
no, it's a classic. Like, when I used to work at a bookstore, like same thing. It's like you and your colleagues would know when like kind of the weirdo or sort of the malcontents would come in and be like, all right, like get ready.
But this guy's just, an amazing loser. But the person here who works at Build-A-Bear does a great job. And watch this.
I'm sure.
I don't know what Build-A-Bear is.
Build-A-Bear. We're gonna see if they're woke or not, folks. Hello. Is that a pronoun pin?
Oh yeah, it is.
What does that mean? Like, I'm really curious on the pronouns. Like, I really don't understand what it means. They, them. What does that mean? Like they, them, theirs. Like.
Yeah. So instead of saying, she's going into the back to get her water bottle, they went to the back to get their water bottle.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Like, they went to go, like, you're just one person though, huh?
Yeah, it's like if you're, if like someone dropped something and it got left somewhere.
Yeah.
And you didn't know who it belonged to, it's like, oh, I hope they come back for it, because it just belongs to one person, but you don't know who it is, so you just say they, even though it just still belongs to one person.
What about it?
Some people do use it.
It? Okay.
I know a couple people who do.
Okay.
Pause it. I mean, what a great way. First off, they did an amazing job of, like, talk about being a sort of earnest, sincere, like caring, patient person. I don't know if they knew what he was doing or not, but what a great way to explain to an idiot, a willful idiot. How do I use the pronoun they? I'm confused. Okay, well, let me explain it to you. Somebody drop this. I hope they come back for this. Their gender is fluid or ambiguous, And that's the way they want to be addressed.
I also feel like they probably thought they were going to get triggered by the it.
And then, yes, Schmidt thinks like,
they're gonna freak out
I
about
can't
it.
wait to say like, what about it? Yeah, you could use it because I'm an adult and I don't really get offended by people identifying themselves in a way that I don't necessarily always understand or am aware of because it doesn't really harm me in any way. And the best thing is he's completely disarmed by this because he can't figure out a way of triggering them. Continue.
What about it?
Some people do use it.
It? Okay.
I know a couple people who do.
Okay. I just find it so strange. You guys don't support the LGBT agenda here, do you? Do you support at Build-A-Bear? Do you support LGBT agenda at Build-A-Bear?
We do support LGBT employees because I am.
You're LGBT?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Excuse me. Why are you filming in this
it's
for?
Easter, so I just want to let you guys know that Christ is Lord, and hopefully you guys find Christ here at Build-A-Bear.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
I didn't know you were filming. Okay.
Christ wins. God bless. Build-A-Bear needs to find Christ. Build-A-Bear is super woke. Super woke.
It's his loser friend. I mean, one, I'm struck by a couple of things here. That they handled this guy so adeptly that he's only left with Christ. You got to find Christ because Easter's coming up. This is the way I'm celebrating Easter. I'm going around and trying to bully people because they're not
Retail employees.
They're not straight. They're not straight. And then also, the guy's such a coward that he needs his sidekick there, who's also terrified himself.
He's not saying anything until he's addressed.
The table's as shaky as their ideology. It's just I'm just shocked by people of this sort of like so arrested in his emotional development. It is uncanny, and sadly our society supports that kind of thing. But Eric from San Diego says, tell everyone you peaked in middle school without saying you peaked in middle school. That is a perfect example. That is fantastic. Build-A-Bear needs to find Christ. This dude needs to find a girlfriend. Exactly. Hack all things. As soon as he finds an LGBTQ person, he shrinks away and stops. What a coward. These guys are the actual personification of the phrase, sir, this is a Wendy's. All right. I'm sorry, folks. We have no more time for phone calls. I know. Someone's going to write me and say, why did you spend 15 minutes debating as to whether you should be checking? Here it is. Majority Report, Taylor Green. The complaint of the caller regarding the Anna Kay tweet, controversy notwithstanding, the Majority Report has what I think, as admittedly a cis person, a very good representation of trans issues and trans callers every week. Are there other similarly structured programs that do better? It's possible. I mean, I'm not, I don't know. I don't follow, but I mean, we try to do our best, but getting caught up on that level of like, and I'm not saying that, it's quite possible that in 5 years, we see the trajectory of any show. This show, I could be saving it up for the big twist when I do a Reuben on this thing. I really blew it though. Like when I got divorced is really when you got to do that.
It's the catalyst sometimes.
Well, oh yeah. No, that's there was a time where I could almost with a 1-to-1 precision. A guy my age calls into the show mad, like a movement conservative. We don't hear from movement conservatives that much on this, but on the radio you would hear from them a lot because they would be tuning around and they get so freaked out. Like, wait, what's this on the radio? They'd call in and literally it would take 2 sentences from them, and I would just go like, "Sir, can I ask you a question?" Just go, "Are you divorced recently?"
The most radicalizing thing for some of these guys.
Kadada. Not taking one more phone call was a good call. It would have been a libertarian or MRA. Fizzy Dinks want to call in and thank the callers from the trans community sharing their story. It takes strength. I'm grateful for the firsthand insight. Definitely. Okay, we'll read 15 of these. I'll try and get to. Okay. My local coffee shop, says Conservative Mind Virus, in a small town of south of Portland, has been a fixture and outspoken safe space for the queer community for decades. They're currently facing the threat of losing their buildings and are raising fund their building. I'd like to encourage anyone in the MR community who wants to know more or help out, they can go do so at savehappyrock.com. Will you check that out? And we will put it on the podcast or the savehappyrock.com. Emma Joyer, how much longer do we have to tolerate this fill-in guy? He didn't even tell us it was Newsday yesterday. He clearly knows nothing about the culture of the show. Nutty Dan, if I were Rupert Murdoch right now, I'd need some of that Sebede. Penelope in Connecticut. This has been going on forever. My daughter was born with a kidney defect 43 years ago. I was talking about the interview that we had with the reporter who had been reporting on Cigna's insurance practices. This would result in urinary obstruction and infections. Thank goodness she was able to surgically resolve this when she was 6. Connecticut would deny every claim except well child visits and hope their patients would get sick of fighting. I never gave up. Meaningless Spoll. A great interview with Patrick. I'm hearing Cedar Sinai Medical Center in LA is preparing a large number of patient-facing staff layoffs despite being all in the black because next year's budget projections show them trending red. Disgusting profits over patient care across the spectrum of healthcare, Medicare for all, indeed. Burnt out today. Your interview today is causing flashbacks. This is why I retired early from a job I really loved as a family doctor. Gowanus Monster. My 4-year-old had a fever for 4 days and doctor ordered upper respiratory panel and Aetna denied. I had them review and they denied again. It's now being reviewed by their doctors, $850. Regular show Mike. I once had to sign 1,000 art prints for a client. It took me 4 days and that didn't even require reading anything. That Cigna doctor is so full of shit her eyes turn brown. I'm not trans, so take this with a grain of salt, but I would rather you have Chase back on to talk about the countless issues facing the community and their rights being attacked than have him dissect Anna's Twitter activity. Diego. Hey, Sam, what would you say is the best way to try and get oh, we already read that one. Dan from Missouri. Apologies if I missed it, but have you guys talked about the kid in Kansas City, Missouri who got shot for going to the wrong house? Police still haven't arrested the guy that shot him, possibly claiming stand your ground laws may be protecting him. I thought they did arrest that guy.
I think they.
We talked about it yesterday. 84-year-old dude.
He yesterday he surrendered and was booked into the Clay County Jail. So I think initially he was released after his arrest, but now he's in custody now.
Winnipeg Craig. Hey, Sam, we just got home from my first day of strike with the Public Service Alliance of Canada. 155,000 members on strike with tens of thousands on picket lines across the country today. Amazing energy despite being a very cold morning in Winnipeg. Please look into the situation. We headlined it, but we'll talk about it more as the week goes on. Build Back Bitter. You have to admit this cycling about Young Turks is like trying to have a daily conversation with a Furby, and I'm fine for moving on from it. I'm not sure what a Furby is, but yeah. Jarek.
It's like a little weird doll.
On the trans and women's sports complainers and how they say things like you don't hear about trans men competing in sports, that's just them showing they don't know what they're talking about. The first out trans person in the U.S. to compete on a U.S. national team matching the gender they identify was Chris Mosier, a trans man who competed on the U.S. men's national duathlon back in 2016. He's also the first known trans athlete to compete in the Olympic trials in the gender with which they identify in 2020. That's right. The first trans athlete to compete in the Olympic trials on a national team in the U.S. was a trans man, not a trans woman. Now that the fearmongers on the right would have you believe. All right, 4 more. Alf from Jersey. People with no experience in independent media have no idea how this works. They really think it's like choreographed down to the millisecond. I mean, I can understand that, but it's not. I mean, look, I know I make it look really easy. That it looks like it's been. We've got like a team of 5 people who are just like flashing, bringing papers in. But I mean, I have some sympathy to that, but it's also, I think, like, you know, people just have to understand that, like, you know, we do the best that we can do. And I certainly try and be completely open to criticism. But when it gets that sort of micro, I don't.
Especially on days like this when it's literally me and you.
Well, but even still, I just like, there's no, I don't know that we could ever possibly have enough resources where I would think like at this, like, you know, that we'd have to go deeper into like some type of expose.
Agreed.
First of all, there are people out there who do, you know, will do like a 45-minute or half an hour
Video
documentary essay on people. And that's, you know, much better suited for that type of thing. That's just not what we do here. Unless it's like, you know, there's broad swath of people on the right that we're trying to sort of like be an obstacle for. Something's got to give at one point, and I just made my, you know, sort of like assessment. Again, I'm not going to go into it again. Number 13. It's so hilarious how delightful people getting harassed by these right-wing nuts are. You can see literally the vitality drain from these idiots as people respond to them so kindly and politely leave. Yeah, I know. It's pretty amazing. I was so impressed with that Build-A-Bear worker. Drew from Vegas. Sounds like a prime opportunity for that caller to start a show about the seemingly obvious problems that no one is addressing. Phoenix Grootfrower. Oh, Smith Fig. I'll look into that. All right. Dog water. 2 more. Part of me feels like the prospect of Tucker Carlson testifying under oath in defamation trial was as close as America will ever get to a truth and reconciliation, like South Africa style. Yeah. The final IM of the day. Hello, Mushy. Sam, you're doing your best. I appreciate the stance you're taking here. Homeboy needs to open a giant can of chill. Bradley, great job. Emma will be here tomorrow. I'll be back on Friday. Bye-bye.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I shifted in and